Hi, my name's Leo and I'm a boat builder and a sailor, and I'm on a mission to rebuild and restore the 112-year-old classic sailing yacht Tally Ho. Now, as you can see, we've had a very white Christmas and holiday period here in Port Townsend. Happy New Year to everyone out there, and let's go and see what's going on the boat. So, as usual, there's a lot of different stuff going on at the moment, but in this video we're going to be focusing mainly on the engine, which hopefully should be arriving very soon, so we can talk about that choice of engine and so on, and about the engine beds, which are the pieces of timber sometimes, or sometimes metal, which actually support the engine inside the boat. So they have to be very strong, heavy duty, have to absorb a lot of vibration from the engine, and they have to be tied in really strongly to the boat. Now, this is something that Richard has mainly been working on with a little help from Jake, while the rest of us have been working in different areas of the boat. So now Richard has finished making the athwartship's bearers for the engine beds. So those are the beams which run across the boat from frame to frame, and the engine beds are going to sit on them and notch around them. So now he can make the engine beds themselves, but in order to get the correct shape, he needs to know where the prop shaft is going to meet the engine, because these engine beds actually dictate the position and the orientation of the engine itself. So to do that, he's used a really clever trick. He's used a piece of string, and at the aft end of the stern tube, or the hole for the stern tube and the prop shaft, he's got that string located in the center of the hole using a piece of plywood. And then on the forward end of that hole, he's got a disc of plywood that fits in the hole with a hole in the middle of that disc. And the string threads through that hole, and then he's able to move the end of the string when it's stretched out taut until it passes directly through the hole in the plywood without touching it at all, and then he knows that string follows the line of the center of the prop shaft, and then using that he'll be able to make the engine beds the correct shape to get the engine in the correct position. Once he's done that, it'll eventually all be fastened together once we have the engine here, and we can triple check all the measurements. we'll be fastening it together with big bronze bolts, and we normally make those bolts here, but actually my threader's not working right now, so Richard may have to go to a friend's workshop to thread the bolts over there. In the few places where we can't actually get through bolts in, we're just going to be using really heavy duty 5/8 bronze lag screws, or coach screws if you're in the UK.
No, it's perfect. There's no play or nothing.
All right. All right, we're here at Dave Thompson's place, Charlie Noble Enterprises, and we're here to thread some 5/8 bolts because our threader isn't working, so Dave's is. Yeah, I've been working with Dave Thompson, I don't know, 40 years or more now, and we were original members of the Shipwrights Co-op, and this is Dave's place here, Charlie Noble Enterprises, and we do a lot of work here, surprisingly enough. A lot of rebuilds of big boats. So anyways, hopefully you get to meet Dave, and he's actually one of my best friends, I think. So.
Well, my name is David Thompson, and I have had a shop in the port for quite a number of years. I've been in the port, I guess, about 46 years, and in various capacities, as a commissioner, as an employee, and as a working shipwright in the yard. It's changing all the time, and wooden boats are not being built, but they're being sunk. You know, they burn, they hit rocks, and so there's fewer and fewer every year, and they're not being replaced. So we just kind of maintain the wooden fishing fleet primarily. You know, some of the boats are over 100 years old, so we do get a lot of comeback business.
Okay, so the engine beds are in place and they're pretty much finished. There's a really nice fit on these. They're not actually finally bolted in place yet because we want to wait until we actually have the engine, which should be very, very soon now, so we can actually take a final measurement between the engine support brackets to make sure that these are the right distance apart. But then they'll be bolted in and then this will be finished. We are also going to be adding some more structure to this whole sort of engine bed assembly. Further aft, there's going to be a couple more beams and some more fore and aft supports, which will actually support the thrust bearing and the CV joint. But that'll be tied into this, and so altogether as a whole, it's going to be really, really strong and really well connected to the hull itself. Right, so it's been a long time coming, but Tally-Ho's new engine is finally here, all the way from England. And I spent a long time deliberating about and choosing this engine, and I actually made a whole episode about that choice and about the reasons behind it, which will be linked down below in the video description, so you can go back and watch that. Right now, I'm just going to give a brief overview of what this engine does and a few of the features. So at this end of the engine, we've got some pretty interesting stuff, which I'll get to in a minute, but the main engine itself is a pretty standard marine diesel engine. It's a Kubota block, marinized by Beta Marine, which is a company in the UK. It's a pretty low-tech, fully mechanical engine. It's raw water cooled, so there's a heat exchange over here. Raw water comes from the sea through the heat exchange, and that cools down the actual coolant in the engine before being ejected through the exhaust system. It does have a turbocharger, and it's mechanically injected, so there's really no electronics on the actual engine itself. apart from the alternator, and of course there'll be a starter battery. But in theory, once the engine is running, you could have a complete electronic failure, and if the engine is already running, you don't need to start it. It will be able to continue running without any electricity at all. It's a 4-cylinder engine rated at 85 horsepower, and we've got a hydraulic PRM 500 gearbox on there, which gives a ratio of approximately 2.5 to 1. Now that's all really great and really exciting, and these engines have got a really good reputation for being extremely reliable, extremely easy to get parts, easy to service, very well regarded and very well tested engines. And a lot of the boats that I've sailed on, particularly pilot cutters and big wooden boats, very often have these engines. But the unusual part about this engine, and the even more exciting bit, is what's in this area and under this cover. So I'm going to get this cover off first, and then we can have a closer look. So what we have here is not actually a standard diesel engine at all. It's a parallel hybrid diesel electric. And the hybridization, if you can call it that, was done by a company called Hybrid Marine out of the UK. So in this part of the system, we have two 10 kilowatt generator motors. So they can, each of these units can either act as a generator, generating electricity, or as a motor. And they're connected via this very strong belt to the gearbox of the engine. And what that means is that this whole system can be used in a variety of different ways. So first of all, you can just use the engine as a regular diesel engine, and none of this electric stuff will be operational. So you can just drive the boat around like that. Or you can run the boat using the diesel engine, but you can have these generating electricity at the same time from the rotation of the engine, and they can actually generate quite a lot of electricity, and that gets stored in a pretty large battery bank. Now, if you want to use this as a generator, but you don't want to drive the boat, we have a pretty clever little shaft clutch down here. So if this opens, the gearbox is not connected to the prop shaft anymore, and so we can run the engine in gear and spin the motors, spin the generators, generate electricity without actually propelling the boat forwards. Once this is closed, then of course the gearbox is connected to the prop shaft as normal. Now once the batteries are charged, either by using this as a generator or through solar panels or shore power, you can use these motors to turn the propeller and drive the boat. And in that situation, you don't have to start the diesel engine, you just use the electric power. You don't get quite the same amount of power, you get about 2/3 of the power of the engine, but that's good enough for motoring in quiet water, calm water, or around the dock and so on. There is another way to generate electricity to charge the batteries, and that is through the propeller. So if you're sailing the boat using the wind and you lock the feathering propeller, then the water going past the hull of the boat will actually turn the propeller and will turn these generators. The gearbox will be in neutral, and so you can then be generating electricity basically from wind power, but via the movement of the boat. One really cool thing about this system is that it has a sort of double redundancy, so you can actually run the engine without any electricity at all, and if this whole system is not working, the hybrid part of the system, you can still use the diesel engine on its own, and vice versa. If there's something wrong with the diesel engine, as long as you've actually got some charge in your batteries, you can motor for a few hours using just the electric drive. Now I chose this system for a few reasons. One of the main reasons is just for the capacity to generate and store a lot of electricity, and that's important for various reasons, partly because I want to keep on making videos and doing multimedia work on the boat, and also because it's useful for just the general running of the boat with fridges, water makers and that sort of thing if you're doing long distance cruising. The other reason is that it's really nice to be able to drive the boat under just electric power. It's very quiet, and so if you're doing charter work, say, that's a real advantage. And also, you'll often only need to use the motor in a sailing vessel for a really short period of time, say just coming onto the dock. And it's not actually very good for diesel engines to be run for really short periods. So in this case, if you just need a little bump when you're coming onto a dock or picking up an anchor or something, you can use the electric motors for that and don't have to start the diesel engine. Having said all that, I didn't want to go with a fully electric system, although there are some advantages to that. I do want to be able to take this boat on some really long voyages to remote places, and it can be hard to store that amount of electricity and generate it unless you have a lot of solar panels, which is fine, but not really appropriate on this boat. So with a couple of pretty large diesel tanks, this boat should have the capacity to go to some really remote places for really long periods of time. It's a very efficient way to store energy, and hopefully we won't actually be using so much diesel as we would normally, because we're going to be able to take advantage of this electrical system, but we've got that diesel capacity there if we need it. Now, this definitely isn't the most common system on sailboats, but I think it's going to work really well for the way I want to use the boat. I think it's going to give us a lot of versatility and hopefully more efficiency as well. And I'd like to try and show that hybrid systems can actually be practical on sort of long distance cruising sailboats. All right, so that is nearly it. I'm really excited and happy to have the engine here finally, and I can't wait to get it in the boat and really get to grips with the whole system. The engine bed's looking really good, even if they need a last little bit of work there to get them bolted down properly. Of course, there's been a lot of work going on here at the same time as what you've just seen. We've also been doing a lot of milling on the deck stock. We've been doing various sanding and varnish prep things, and a lot of planning and system stuff as well, of course. But we'll get around to all that in good time. For now, thanks a lot for watching, and a massive thank you to everyone who has donated or otherwise supported this project. It does make a huge difference, and it means that we're able to keep on doing this work, and I'm able to keep on making and editing these videos. So I really, really appreciate it. And I'll see you next time. Cheers.